Dr. Alan Pierce had been working night shifts at St. Mary's Hospital for the past 10 years, but he had never experienced a night like this. The corridors were quieter than usual, the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows. It felt wrong. At 2:43 a.m., the intercom buzzed. "Dr. Pierce, please report to room 413. He frowned. Room 413 had been out of use for years after a fire had gutted the walls. No patients were assigned there. "Must be a mistake," he muttered, but still, curiosity got the better of him. He walked up the dim hallway, his footsteps echoing loudly. The door to room 413 was slightly ajar. Inside, the smell of burnt flesh and old antiseptic filled his nose. A single hospital bed sat in the center, the sheets neatly tucked in. Then their heart monitor beeped. Alan's breath hitched. The screen showed a steady heart rate, but there was no one in the bed. A whisper rasped through the air. "Doctor, you left me." Alan spun around, but the room was empty. The whisper came again, closer this time. "You let me die." The sheets on the bed began to move, indenting as if an invisible body were shifting beneath them. The monitor beeped faster. Alan stumbled back. "Who's there?" The air grew thick with heat, and in the reflection of the monitor, he saw a charred figure sitting upright in the bed. Its empty eyes locked onto him. Alan screamed. When the nurses found him an hour later, he was curled in the corner, babbling about a patient who was never discharged. When nurse Julia Evans was transferred to Riverside Psychiatric Hospital, she was warned about Ward C. It had been shut down for over a decade, and nobody went near it. Patients whispered about hearing voices. Even the janitors refused to clean that part of the hospital. One evening, after finishing her rounds, Julia found herself drawn toward Ward C. The door was unlocked. That wasn't possible. She stepped inside. The air was cold and heavy. The hallway stretched endlessly, the doors marked with peeling patient names. A creak sounded behind her. She turned, her flashlight flickering. At the end of the hall, a woman in a hospital gown stood, her back facing Julia. "Ma'am, are you lost?" Julia's voice wavered. The woman didn't move. She took a cautious step forward. The air smelled of mildew and something rotting. The woman's breathing was audible, now ragged, desperate. "Are you all right?" The woman's head snapped to the side, but her body remained still. Julia's stomach lurched. The woman's face was blank, no eyes, no mouth, just smooth, stretched skin. Then she took a step forward, and another, and she was running. Julia bolted for the door, but it slammed shut in front of her. A whisper drifted through the air. "You shouldn't be here." In 1983, Mercy General Hospital had an incident that would never be spoken of again. A nurse, Margaret Delaney, had taken her own life in room 209, claiming she could hear voices whispering through the walls. Since then, the room had remained empty, until Ryan, a new orderly, was assigned to clean it. He rolled his cart down the hall, humming softly, pushing open the door. The air inside was stale, as if it had been sealed for years. He began wiping down the counter when the sink turned on by itself. "Faulty pipes," he muttered, but a cold unease crept up his spine. As he turned to leave, the room grew unbearably cold. The hair on his arms stood. The mirror above the sink fogged over, and a message formed, "Help him." Ryan bolted for the door, but the handle wouldn't turn. Behind him, a soft sobbing filled the room. He turned, heart hammering. There, standing in the corner, was a nurse. Her uniform was old-fashioned, her cap tilted slightly. "Are you okay?" Ryan whispered, ... She lifted her face. Her eyes were hollow sockets. The lights flickered violently. The sobs turned into agonized wails. Ryan screamed, pounding on the door. When security found him, he was unconscious. The message on the mirror had changed. "She won't leave until someone listens." Dr. Lewis was used to working night shifts, but something about room 303 always unsettled him. The record said it was unoccupied, but the nurses swore they heard movement inside. One night, he decided to investigate. He pushed open the door. The bed was empty. The only piece of furniture was an old rocking chair, its paint chipped and peeling. Then it rocked ... A chill ran down his spine. "Is someone here?" The chair stopped abruptly. A rustling sound made him turn toward the window. The curtains fluttered, though there was no breeze. Then, from behind him, a voice whispered, "I never left." Dr. Lewis spun around. The chair was now facing him, and sitting in it was a man, pale and thin, hospital gown, hanging off his skeletal frame. Dr. Lewis reached for the light switch, but the bulb exploded, plunging the room into darkness. The whisper returned, now right against his ear. "It's your turn to stay." The next morning, Dr. Lewis didn't show up for his shift. The only thing they found in room 303 was the rocking chair, still moving,